This broadcast is going to be so much bigger and so much more fun than last year. You can expect even more vivid content and more vivid AR and virtual reality. There's going to be a huge blimp that goes around the stadium dropping virtual slime. You know, it's Nickelodeon, so there's slime in our blood. There's slime in everything that we do.
First thing I want to ask you is Nickelodeon's coming back with a broadcast of the NFL wildcard game. And this time it's going to be the Dallas Cowboys and San Francisco 49ers. So what can fans expect from this broadcast this year?
Absolutely. So this broadcast is going to be so much bigger and so much more fun than last year. You can expect even more vivid content and more vivid AR and virtual reality. There's going to be a huge blimp that goes around the stadium dropping virtual slime. You know, it's Nickelodeon, so there's slime in our blood. There's slime in everything that we do. So instead of the slime zone, instead of the end zone, we actually have the slime zone. So it's going to be more realistic and more visually appealing than last year. And it's going to be more fun. It's going to be more fun, and it's going to be great for the entire family.
Yeah, Brian, Gabby's right. I recently got a blood test, and they were concerned with the level of slime in it. They weren't sure what was going on, what changed from last year to this year. Well, a lot's changed. And I feel like the best way to describe this year two versus year one is like, let's use the Cowboys as an example. Last year, first year under Mike McCarthy, figuring some things out. Obviously, the Dak injury didn't help them very much, but they get everybody back. They keep their core nucleus together, and they could take all their experiences from year one, add a couple different pieces, add some more wrinkles to their playbook, and now they push out a brand new product. They win double-digit games, and they're hosting a playoff game. I think that just feels like us. We have more confidence this year because we've now done it. We know what it feels like. We know what to expect. And we now have this idea of, okay, we can elevate year one to year two, and that's really the expectation.
Of course. And knowing you mentioned the Cowboys and they're playing the 49ers, and this game is actually one of the more interesting matchups of the wild card, because the Cowboys and 49ers, they have a lot of history, played each other in the 90s, and essentially the winner of that game would go on to either play or win the Super Bowl. So how exciting is it for you guys to call this game because of the history of both teams?
Yeah, I think it's huge. We were talking about it earlier. We had a great game last year for us and the Bears and the Saints, and a lot of great storylines in that one. Obviously, Drew Brees last year. And so for him to be at home and to be in that atmosphere and just see the emotions that go along with a Saints playoff run was awesome. It really was, truly was. But to your point, this matchup's historic in terms of NFL relevance. And these are two franchises that are built into the fabric of the history of the league. And so for them both trying to get back to that glory, which they've now missed out on for decades at this point, for Dallas, America's team, it felt like for a large portion of this season, this could be the year for them. And it still does. I mean, they've got all the pieces there. They've got all their superstars on both sides of the field. Micah Parsons, in my opinion, is going to be the runaway defensive rookie of the year. You've got Dak Prescott fresh off his contract. Zeke has looked more like the player of old. Wide receivers, it's a bummer about Michael Gallup, but you've got legitimate stars for Dallas. You've got legitimate stars for San Francisco. Deebo Samuel has transformed himself into one of the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL. You've got Nick Bosa. You've got just Fred Warner. You can go down the list of the players and the personalities. I think that's really what has stood out for us. For our purposes of doing this game, you're right. The history is huge, and everything that these two teams have been through together is certainly going to be there. And we're going to do our best to try to let the young audience know exactly what's at stake and how much it does mean to both fan bases, franchises, et cetera. But at the same time, the present is absolutely massive. And for both these teams, a chance to relive those glory days, for us to take those personalities, to nickify them, as we call it, to utilize all of the abilities that we have, as Gabby mentioned, the AR and the slime zone and whatnot. It's going to be, to me, it's a perfect storm. It's a perfect situation for us. Like, we could not have asked for a better matchup, a better situation at a better venue than Jerry's World to do it.
Of course. And Gabrielle, I wanted to ask you this. Last year, you made your debut behind the booth broadcasting. How was that entire experience, and what did you learn from that?
That was so much fun. And I was so grateful to have Noah and Nate there to kind of take me under their wing and teach me everything and, teach me all the controls and whatnot. And my job is really to be the voice of kids at home who don't really know about football and teens who are interested in learning about the sport. So it's Nate and Noah's job to be, the pros and the experts. My job is just to be like, hey, what do you call that play or what just happened? So learning from the first year and going into this year, this weekend is going to be so much fun. And I basically learned that you just kind of have to go with the flow. You kind of have to just roll with the punches. And that's really what I'm best at. And I love kind of pushing myself outside of my comfort zone and doing things that I normally wouldn't. So I feel like that's something that I'm carrying from last year into this year as well.
Absolutely. And no, I want to ask you this. You've called a number of notable games. You've been the voice of the Clippers. You've called college and pro football. And with this broadcast, you guys mentioned this a little bit different. It's more family oriented. But other than that, are there any differences calling a game for Nickelodeon than what you have with CBS and other networks?
Well, the preparation is slightly different, Brian. At the end of the day, the message is still the same because you want to convey what's happening on the field, but the way and the manner in which you're doing it certainly differs. And I had a chance, fortunately, with the Clippers to then do a similar broadcast to this. We did a kids cast during the NBA playoffs, and it just kind of retrained that muscle in my brain of, okay, I need to present this information accurately. I need to present this information timely. But at the same time, I need to do it in a way that it's digestible for everybody. And I think that's what we learned with last year's broadcast. We knew going into it that kids were going to enjoy it because we had all the bells and whistles and we had the experience for us. And honestly, having Gabrielle and last year Lex with us was huge just because they could connect with that fan base, the Nickelodeon fan base instantly just by name and face recognition. But I think what Nate and I learned is that, and for that matter, Gabby as well, is that people of all ages really liked last year's broadcast. And it was a lot of families watching together. I got texts, I know, from people ages 7 to 67. Like, it didn't matter. It just seemed that the thing that shone through more than anything else was how genuinely excited we were, how much fun we truly were having. And so if you're asking about the differences of calling a game where all you're doing is calling the game and calling a game where there's slime and young Sheldon and a blimp potentially, the difference is you're leaning into the fun and you're almost bringing yourself back to why we all started playing sports in the first place. And that feeling, it still hits home 10 times out of 10. And I would say that's really why I think we enjoyed it so much, is because it took us back to our youth. And for Nate, it took him back to before he was ever an NFL player and now a broadcasting superstar. And for Gabrielle, I mean, I can't speak for you, but I would say that
I'm still here.
I know. Considering that was the first time you were ever at an NFL game, like, that's pretty cool. And the fact that we got to do that and experience it together was awesome. So I hope that feeling continues to be the thing that shines through more than anything else, because that's the biggest difference, in my opinion, was just leaning into it more than normal.
Yeah. And you mentioned Nate Burleson, and he's going to be part of the broadcast. So Nate's had a quite a year, after being on Good Morning Football. He's made the transition to having his being the co-host of a morning show on CBS. How rewarding is it to have a guy like Nate Burleson, who not only has the broadcasting experience, but has played in the league and played in the league at a high level for so many years?
Well, I mean, he's such a sweet guy in general, and I think that's really what matters, because you can be the most successful person in the universe, but what matters is your heart, and that really shines through with Nate. And I feel like that's what made him so successful, and that's what people really connect with, is his heart. And it's just an honor to have the opportunity to work with him and learn from him and get advice. And I'm gonna say this now: Noah and I are gonna slime him. Hopefully. Yes. Because he put it out there last year. So, I'm kind of working in my brain. How can we do this? Because we talked to him earlier. I was like, nah, I'm going to get you this year. But no, it's an honor to work with someone who's so kind-hearted and so great at what they do.
Yeah, he's got to be one of the hardest working people that you'll meet. And it all, similar to the broadcast as a whole, it all comes from a very genuine, real place. Like when you when you say the words "I'm real" or "he's real" or "she's real," that certainly is how you can absolutely describe Nate in every facet of life. Real in his interactions, as Gabby mentioned, real in how he prepares himself, real in how he attacks every day. Like, that's just who he is. And so when you've got someone like that, it's super easy to follow. And I think that he kind of led us in a sense last year, and we all kind of followed the way and the lead that the path that he created for us for the rest of that game. But as I mentioned earlier, now that we've all done it together, I think we know each other's tendencies a little bit better. We know what everybody wants to get out of it, and we can bounce off of each other and work with each other even better than we did in the past. But all those experiences, all those jobs that he keeps getting are beyond well-deserved. I would give him any job that is available. Like, he's that good at everything he does. So it's an honor to work with him, as Gabby said.
Absolutely. And a couple more questions before I let you go. You mentioned how successful the first year of the broadcast was, and it looks like this year will be just as bigger than it was last year. If it continues to succeed, do you see Nickelodeon broadcasting not only just NFL playoff games, but even regular season games on the road?
Ooh, I hope so. I don't know about you, Gabrielle. I know we've got young Dylan who's hopping on this year. He's like, we got to do NBA. We got to do every sport. I think we should. I think that there's a market for it. So I'm hoping that it just continues to grow because it's so much fun to do.
Yeah, I think it would be so much fun. I mean, I did the Super Bowl the past 2 years. So, I mean, I think doing games regularly throughout the season would be a great opportunity. And I mean, hey, there's basketball, baseball, volleyball. Let's do it. I'm all here. You know what
Cricket, I've heard is big.
Yeah. You know? All right. And the last question for me before I let you go is, you talked about trying to get Nate Burleson slimed. If whoever wins this game, will we see a player or coach getting slimed? Because I want to see it.
I think we want to see it, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Watch the broadcast and see what happens. You have to watch and see. Yep.
Perfect tease. You see, this is why Gabby's the pro here.
Oh, of course. But guys, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. I'll definitely be watching the broadcast, and good luck to you.